The Phoenix has had a varying role in Final Fantasy. Sometimes it is a summon, sometimes it is an enemy, but it is often the same creature, with the same signature traits either way. The Phoenix originates from Greek and Egyptian mythology, but the exact origin is unclear. The root word is the Greek phoenix, which has multiple meanings. It could mean a purple or crimson color, the fruit of a date tree, or a date tree itself. The city of Phoenicia was famous for its purple dye, and the word Phoenician came about to mean of Phoenicia. On the Egyptian side, the Bennu bird is described as an eagle-like bird with brilliant red and gold plumage and is associated with the sun and rebirth, and its name can also be used to refer to the fruit of date trees. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus wrote in the 5th century BC that the Egyptians of Heliopolis described the phoenix to him. However, the phoenix is also mentioned in the Precepts of Chiron, a Greek poem that was attributed in antiquity to Hesiod, who is believed to have lived in the 7th and 6th century BC. Because of the age of these texts and the confusion in terminology across languages, it is not fully clear if the phoenix originates from the Greeks or the Egyptians. A likely explanation is that it was formed from both, as the cultures mingled and legends and stories passed through word of mouth. However it originates, in modern culture the phoenix is usually depicted as a large red bird associated with fire and immortality. Many other cultures have stories of great birds associated with the sun or fire, which may or may not have influenced the myths of the phoenix or been influenced by them. In Eastern Asia, the phoenix's analog is the Chinese Fen Huang, known as the Ho-Oh in Japanese. The Fen Huang's origins date back thousands of years in China, with images of birds that have draconic body features and are associated with fire and the sun. The Fen Huang is sometimes conflated with the vermilion bird, a separate Chinese mythological creature. The vermilion bird is called Khoo in China and Suzaku in Japanese, and it is one of the 4 symbols, along with the azure dragon, the white tiger, and the black tortoise. Each animal is associated with a compass direction, a color, a season, and one of the classical Chinese elements. The vermilion bird represents south, red, summer, and fire. In Final Fantasy, Phoenix is a large bird colored in various shades of red, orange, and yellow. Later games may give its body multiple colors and a long tail with whip-like strands, bringing it closer to depictions of Ho-Oh. Depending on the incarnation, it may have wings stylized to resemble flames, or the entire bird will be a creature of living flame. Its size varies, but it is often rather large and much bigger than humans. Phoenix varies on if it is a summon or an enemy. While many creatures in Final Fantasy can say the same, Phoenix usually is either one or the other. It is rare that the player will be able to fight Phoenix as a boss and obtain it as a summon, but this is not entirely unheard of. Phoenix occasionally has a few oddities compared to other summons, such as the player not being able to summon Phoenix on command, or among the summoned monsters, Phoenix cannot be summoned by the player directly for some reason. Phoenix lends its name to the recurring item Phoenix Down, an item that revives KO'd party members. There is also the Phoenix Pinion, which either summons Phoenix or is a stronger version of Phoenix Down, and the Mega Phoenix, which revives all KO'd party members. Phoenix's signature attack is Flames of Rebirth. Flames of Rebirth does fire elemental damage to enemies and revives all KO'd allies. In some games, Flames of Rebirth does not do both these things, just one or the other, and it varies on how many allies it revives and how much of their HP it restores. Phoenix does not have any particularly recurring or notable abilities besides Flames of Rebirth, but it often has other abilities associated with fire. While Phoenix often has a major story role, it is not given much personality and rarely speaks. Sometimes this is because Phoenix only appears in a form where it reasonably cannot communicate. Other times there is no apparent reason for its silence. It is usually one of the higher ranking summons among the likes of Bahamut and Leviathan, and acquired late in the game. Phoenix is sometimes associated with Bahamut or another dragon, possibly due to its influences from the Fen Huang, which often describe it as having both avian and draconic features, or depicting the Fen Huang as an opposing force to a dragon. The first appearance of Phoenix in Final Fantasy predates its actual appearance in the game. Concept art for a creature called Phoenix is included in the art galleries for some ports of the original Final Fantasy, but no monster called that appears in the game. An enemy called Phoenix exists in Final Fantasy III, but it is dummied out and cannot be encountered. Phoenix appears in-game for the first time in Final Fantasy V. After X-Death merges the two worlds, the player can climb the previously inaccessible Phoenix Tower. At the top of the tower rests the Highwind Winddrake, which was previously wounded by Melusine. With its strength waning, but its will to aid Lena still strong, the Winddrake plummets from the tower and is reborn as the summon Phoenix. Phoenix is a level 5 summon, one of 3 with Leviathan and Bahamut, and its summon attack deals fire damage to all enemies and revives a single ally with full HP and MP. Phoenix is the focus of a subplot in Final Fantasy VI. When Locke's lover Rachel perished in an Imperial attack, Locke blamed himself for her death for not being there to protect her after she lost her memories and rejected him. In order to atone for his mistake, Locke began searching for a legendary treasure that can revive the dead, and connected it to the story of the creature Phoenix that turned to stone when it died, actually a description of it crystallizing into magicite. Some reports claimed it was within the Empire and was hidden by Emperor Gestal, which was a motivator for Locke accompanying Celes to the southern continent. In the world of Ruin, various clues point the player to a star-shaped mountain range north of Zen. The Phoenix Cave is located here, a volcanic crater only accessible by airship. In the depths of the cave, the party finds Locke, who has found Phoenix's magicite, but it is heavily cracked and has little power left. Locke takes the magicite to Rachel and it shatters, but its power revives her for a few moments. Rachel bids Locke farewell and urges him to let go of his guilt. She bonds with the Phoenix to reform its magicite at full power. Phoenix teaches the spells Firaga, Kiraga, and all 3 tiers of the life spell. As an Esper, it casts life on all party members, but does not damage enemies. A point of interest is that the Phoenix's sprite resembles the concept art of Phoenix for the original Final Fantasy. It is unknown if the sprite was based on the art, or if this is just a coincidence. In Final Fantasy VII, Phoenix is obtained during the Huge Materia subplot. The party is tasked to defend Fort Condor from Shinra's attack to claim the Huge Materia from its reactor. If they successfully fend them off, the Condor perched atop the fortress perishes, but the wings of the Phoenix flash as it falls. The party can then retrieve the Phoenix summon materia from the nest, where the Condor's egg has hatched. Phoenix costs 180 MP to summon and uses Phoenix Flame to deal fire damage to all enemies and revive all fallen party members and heal them to full HP. In the prequel Crisis Core, Zack can find the Phoenix materia in Nibelheim during the 7 Wonders side quest. One of the purported wonders is that the town's drinking water sometimes turns red like blood, but Zack discovers it is just the Phoenix materia making the water red. Finding the materia adds Phoenix to the digital Mindwave summon wheels. Phoenix deals non-elemental damage to all enemies and grants Zack the Ray status. Since Crisis Core has only Zack playable, the Ray status acts like re-rays, automatically reviving Zack when he is KO'd. Phoenix downs in this game work the same way. Phoenix is a guardian force in Final Fantasy VIII, but it cannot be junctioned like other GFs. This game is the first time the items Phoenix Pinion and Mega Phoenix appear, and Phoenix Pinion summon Phoenix when used in battle. After a Phoenix Pinion has been used once, Phoenix may appear at any time the party is KO'd in battle, and it will deal fire elemental damage to all enemies and revive the party at low HP. There is approximately a 25% chance of this occurring, and it cannot be influenced by the player. Phoenix also has a corresponding Triple Triad card, which is the final reward for the Queen of Cards side quest, and is won from the aid in Estar's presidential palace after the player loses the Doom Train card to the Queen. The Final Fantasy IX Phoenix is one of Eiko's Eidolons, and deals fire elemental damage to all enemies and revives all KO'd allies. Phoenix is taught to Eiko by equipping a Phoenix Pinion, which can be found throughout the game. If Eiko is in the party when the party is KO'd, there is a chance Phoenix will automatically be summoned. When it appears this way, it does not damage enemies, and only revives the party, and this summon has a different animation of Phoenix flying into battle and embracing Eiko in its wings. The odds for Phoenix to appear increase depending on how many Phoenix Pinions the party has, up to a 38.7% chance with 99 of them. In Final Fantasy XI, Phoenix is one of the 5 terrestrial avatars, with Carbuncle, Fenrir, Bahamut, and Diabolos. The 5 are charged with guarding the 5 Mother Crystals, the crystals that were used to create the world of Vana'diel and the 5 races. The Chains of Promathia expansion focuses heavily on the Mother Crystals and the terrestrial avatars, as the Twilight God Promathia is attempting to resurrect itself, an act that would destroy the Mother Crystals and Vana'diel. At an unknown point in the past, Phoenix was killed and her flames used to forge the Phoenix Blade of Tenzin, a samurai from the east. Phoenix's spirit is bound in the Phoenix Blade, and Tenzin is able to commune with her and call upon her power to ignite his blade. On the urging of Phoenix, Tenzin aids the adventurer in uncovering the reason Bahamut has called the dragons to him and intends to declare war on civilization. It is explained over the course of the expansion that the 5 races of Vana'diel all contain a fragment of Promethea's homerealm, the emptiness, within them, and Bahamut intends to wipe them out to attempt to stop Promethea's rebirth. Tenzin asks Bahamut to aid them in defeating Promethea another way, but Bahamut refuses, viewing Phoenix as childish and idealistic. When a fleet of the Duchy of Drano engages Bahamut, he charges Megaflare to obliterate their ship, and Tenzin wields the Phoenix Blade against him as the adventurer and their allies flee. The Phoenix Blade is drained of its power, with its final command to Tenzin being to lead the adventurer to the 5th Mother Crystal. It is later revealed that Phoenix's power actually transferred to Celtius, who aids the adventurer and their allies in destroying Promethea. Rhapsodies of Vana'diel is the final expansion for Final Fantasy XI, and sees the player revisiting multiple allies they've worked with before. In the far future, Vana'diel is destroyed by the Cloud of Darkness, and a girl named Iroha has traveled back in time to prevent this. It is later revealed that Iroha is Tenzin's daughter, and she carries the spirit of Phoenix within her, which allows her to remain in the past even though the lifestream of the planet rejects her. Phoenix's blessing is temporarily stolen by the expansion's antagonist, Walto Oscuro, and Tenzin later takes back some of the power, restoring the Phoenix Blade. Tenzin accompanies the adventurer as they visit Alexander, who speaks to Phoenix and restores its blessing to Iroha on her behalf. Iroha later transfers Phoenix's blessing to the adventurer to save them, and must recuperate in the light of a new Mother Crystal Celtius is crafting. At the end of the questline, the adventurer returns Phoenix to Iroha, infused with energy from the other avatars, and Celtius also returns the fragment of Phoenix's power he still carries. This fully restores Phoenix and grants her power to Iroha, giving her red hair and eyes. In the following battle where Iroha fights the Cloud of Darkness alongside the player, she cannot be permanently killed and will automatically be revived if she is KO'd. When the Cloud of Darkness is defeated, Iroha returns to her time, and leaves a lock of her hair with the adventurer, a symbol of Phoenix's blessing. This is actually a key item that allows the player access to new side quests now that the main quest line is completed. For these various plot reasons, Phoenix cannot be summoned in Final Fantasy XI, and is one of 3 avatars with this distinction, the other 2 being Bahamut and Siren. Further, Phoenix has never actually seen herself until the end of Rhapsodies of Vana'diel. Characters only react to hearing her voice or see glowing flames as proof of her presence. Phoenix has a minor role in Final Fantasy XII. It is an optional boss fought in the Subterra beneath the Pharos at Ridorana. The player must venture into the Subterra to find the elite mark Shadowseer, and during the battle it will throw up palings to become invincible, and summon the 3 bosses of the Pharos, Pandemonium, Slit, and Fenrir, and also Phoenix. This is a reference to the Chinese 4 symbols, with the blue fish Slit in place of the Azure dragon. In Final Fantasy XIII, Phoenix is a fal'Cie that provides warmth and light to Cocoon, in essence acting as its artificial sun. Lightning, Saz, Hope, and Vanille fly near Phoenix when fleeing in an airship from Psycom, but Phoenix's energy emissions damage the airship and they crash in the Vile Peaks. In 13.2's Brain Blast quiz, it is mentioned that every few centuries, Phoenix light briefly flickered and plunged Cocoon into darkness before flaring back up, a phenomenon known as Flames of Rebirth. Phoenix appears in Final Fantasy XIV as a boss in the Coil of Bahamut raids, faced as the boss of the penultimate area. The lore of Phoenix directly ties it into the game's original incarnation and re-release as a Realm Reborn, fitting as a symbol of rebirth from destruction. During the 7th Umbral Calamity that marked the end of the original game, the Elder Primal Bahamut was freed from the artificial moon Dalamud and laid waste to Eorzea. Louisoix stood against Bahamut and attempted to call upon the power of the 12, the gods of Eorzea, to imprison it again, but their power was not enough and Bahamut broke free. Louisoix teleported the Warrior of Light to safety before Bahamut's Terra Flare seemingly destroyed him. After the game's relaunch, the Binding Coil of Bahamut raids have the Warrior of Light and Louisoix's grandchildren Alisaie and Alphinaud venture into a cavern containing a shard of Dalamud. There they find the spirit of Louisoix has been enthralled by Bahamut to protect it while it regenerates. Alphinaud realizes he is no longer human, and Louisoix reveals he has become the primal Phoenix. When Phoenix is defeated, Louisoix is freed from Bahamut's control. He explains that during the calamity, the Aether of the failed imprisoning spell responded to the wishes of those on the battlefield that prayed for salvation, and his own desire to save them, and it transformed him into Phoenix. With this power, Louisoix pushed through Bahamut's terror flare and struck a death blow against it. Believing he had prevailed, he released the Aether back into the world to allow it to heal from Bahamut's attack, but Bahamut seized his spirit and enthralled him, forcing Louisoix to protect it as his body regenerated. Louisoix tasks the Warrior of Light to finish off Bahamut before it can complete its regeneration, and bids farewell to his grandchildren. His spirit is then finally allowed to rest. The twins and the Warrior of Light keep his fate a secret, as if people knew he had become primal, they may attempt to summon him, which is not what he would want. Patch 4.11 of Stormblood added a new tier of raids, Ultimate, the first of which was the Unending Coil of Bahamut, consisting of stronger versions of bosses from the original raids, Twintania, Nail Deus Daunus, and Bahamut Prime. When Twintania and Nail Deus Daunus are defeated, Bahamut unleashes Terror Flare, seemingly wiping out the party. However, Phoenix appears to attack Bahamut and cast Flames of Rebirth, reviving and fully healing the party as the final phase of the raid begins. As a boss, Phoenix's mechanics rely on players swapping debuffs or alternating who is being attacked to avoid taking unsurvivable damage, and manipulating the placement of area of effect attacks and the lesser enemies it spawns. Phoenix will attack with Revelation, which inflicts a debuff that causes Revelation to deal greater damage to that player if they are hit by it again, and uses Brand of Purgatory to inflict a debuff that greatly increases the damage taken from a later attack, Flames of Unforgiveness. But if that debuff is passed on to another player, Flames of Unforgiveness deals lower damage that can be survived. Phoenix will also combo Black Fire and White Fire, and Blue Fire and Red Fire, area of effect attacks that target specific players. Black Fire spawns an enemy that explodes to damage nearby players, but if the Black Fire is hit by the explosion from a White Fire, it will be debuffed and become much easier to destroy. Blue Fire leaves behind an area that reduces the damage of Red Fire, which is a homing fireball that explodes when it impacts a player. Phoenix will also spawn Bennu to aid it, which can buff Phoenix and other nearby Bennu, and later in the fight they will be continuously resurrected by Phoenix and buff nearby Bennu each time they are revived, so players must lure the Bennu away from each other before killing them. Phoenix will use Flames of Rebirth to continuously buff itself, and spawns a Fountain of Fire that will grant it stacks of Flames of Rebirth unless a player stands in the fountain, taking a stacking debuff instead. To prevent a single player from being too heavily debuffed while not allowing Phoenix to buff itself, players must alternate who is standing in the Fountain of Fire. Phoenix will also summon new enemies to aid it, Phoenix Eggy, that use rushing attacks to damage anyone in their path. Because of the story behind it, Phoenix itself cannot be summoned. Instead, Shadowbringers gave summoners the ability Firebird Trance, which allows them to summon a lesser version, Demi-Phoenix. Demi-Phoenix has a short duration of 20 seconds. When called, it automatically uses Everlasting Flight, slowly restoring HP to the summoner and nearby allies, and uses Scarlet Flame whenever its summoner casts a spell, dealing fire damage to a target. The summoner can also command it to use Revelation, which deals fire damage over an area of effect. A short story tie-in implies that Phoenix may have been the first primal created, by the work of the ancient Ascians. In the world of 14, primals are conjured by the prayers and thoughts of their worshippers given form by Aether, and in this short story that is exactly what the Ascians do, conjuring an immortal bird with flaming wings. A wayward soul had bound itself to the bird, causing it to become wild and act in a self-destructive manner, and the Ascians destroyed it as a mercy. Presumably, the information gathered from this early experiment laid the groundwork for its refinement into the art of summoning. Final Fantasy XVI will take place in the world of Valisthea, where summoned monsters are called icons and manifest through someone born blessed with their power, called dominance. The family of the game's protagonist, Clive Rothfield, assumed that he would awaken as the dominant of Phoenix, the icon of fire, but his little brother Joshua was chosen instead. As the dominant of Phoenix, Joshua is able to transform into the icon, and Clive can tap into its power as Joshua's sworn shield. The game's reveal trailer frequently shows Clive using fire magic and briefly manifesting Phoenix's wings when attacking, so it can be assumed his ability to channel Phoenix is somehow a core gameplay mechanic. The trailer shows a clash between Phoenix and Ifrit, who is described as a dark icon on the game's website. The sight of Ifrit stuns an onlooker, who recognizes it as a second icon of fire and exclaims, "That's impossible." For now, the significance of this battle and what role Phoenix will play in the story and gameplay remain unclear. However, Phoenix appears in a promotional poster of Clive, and the game's logo shows Phoenix and Ifrit in confrontation, so it could be assumed that Phoenix will play a major role in both. Phoenix has appeared in many spin-offs, but only has a prominent role in some of them. These include Tactics Advance, Tactics A2, Dimensions 2, Theatrhythm All-Star Carnival, World of Final Fantasy, and Record Keeper. Because of their story connections with Phoenix in their home games, Lena, Locke, Aiko, and Aroha are associated with Phoenix in spin-offs, and can either summon Phoenix or evoke its imagery in their attacks. Some games that heavily feature the four symbols use Suzaku as a substitute for Phoenix, such as the Four Lords of Orthon in Final Fantasy XIV, or the Four Nations of Orience in Final Fantasy Type 0. In such cases, Suzaku often incorporates imagery and abilities associated with Phoenix. Phoenix was intended to appear in Final Fantasy Type 0 as a summon, and as concept art and an unfinished model in the game data. Phoenix has a small subplot in Final Fantasy Dimensions. The party finds a grove populated by Bennu, red birds that resemble Phoenix, which are being preyed upon by a lion-like monster called the Conqueror. The party slays the Conqueror but are unable to save the last of the Bennu, but its spirit responds to their grief and restores the Phoenix summon on them. In the lore of Dissidia NT Final Fantasy, Phoenix features in the stage drama Secretum Himitsu, where it is explained that Locke died after finding Phoenix's magicite in the Phoenix Cave, and he carried it with him when he was being transported to the afterlife on the Phantom Train and escaped and fell into World B. Locke eventually used Phoenix to free the captive souls on the Phantom Train, which also restored him to life. The game's development staff discussed the possibility of adding Phoenix to the game as a summon, but this did not happen. Final Fantasy Brave Exvius is the rare occasion Phoenix is fought as a boss to be obtained as a summon, and also a rare occasion where it has dialogue. Phoenix is purported to be tasked to consume the world in flame and restore it from its ashes, and many have sought out to ask it to revive a loved one, making it a creature treated with reverence and respect. However, no one has ever managed to form a pact with it to summon it. Phoenix turns out to be a rather sociable and relaxed Esper, though he is flippant about the idea of incinerating all the world if he felt like doing it. The party speculates that Phoenix's personality changes each time he is reincarnated, but it is unclear if this is true. The party seeks Phoenix in the Cave of Rebirth, a volcano where he is said to submerge himself in lava to rejuvenate himself. Surprised by humans daring to ask it for a pact, Phoenix laughs at them and invites them to prove their strength in battle. After the battle, the party knows he was holding back, but Phoenix finds them entertaining and decides to form a pact with them anyway, tagging along on their adventure purely for his own amusement. Phoenix is a dual elemental summon in this game, with abilities themed in fire and earth, but he has a stronger focus on fire than earth. There is also a Dark Phoenix boss fought in an optional quest, where numerous dark incarnations of enemies and bosses appear, but Dark Phoenix cannot be obtained as a summon. Phoenix also appears as a summon in the spin-off War of the Visions. World of Final Fantasy features a variant of Phoenix called Iris. Phoenix is the more offensive of the two with several fire elemental attacks, while Iris has curative and supportive abilities like Cure and Faith. The Chocobo series includes Phoenix in several games, and it is a boss in Final Fantasy Fables Chocobo's Dungeon. In Final Fantasy Unlimited, Phoenix is summoned using the Soil Charge Triad Mother Black, Fire Red, and Burning Gold. It has the distinction of being the first summon to appear in the series, being called by Kaze in the first episode. In Ehrgeiz, God Bless the Ring, Phoenix is the final boss of the game's quest mode, based on its Final Fantasy VII design. Kingdom Hearts Final Mix has a Gumi ship blueprint based on the Phoenix, one of several blueprints based on Final Fantasy creatures and summons. Thank you to everyone for watching. Remember to like and subscribe for more lore of Final Fantasy in the future, and stop by the community tab on my channel to vote on the next subject.